Grand Theft Auto Online is one of the most successful video games of all time. It outgrew its base game GTA 5 and became an incredibly popular standalone, multiplayer shooting and driving game that has continually been updated and expanded since its inception in 2013. Despite that, I consider it to be one of the prime examples of missed potential in video games, and more interestingly, I think it is one of the few games where you can actually clearly see the original vision of what it was supposed to be and exactly where, how and why it diverged from that idea. Let's get into it. I believe that GTA Online began development as a completely different game than what we eventually received on release, and with the post-release expansions the developers doubled down on that change, turning it around 180 degrees. Let us start off by taking a look at some original trailer snippets for the game.
With Grand Theft Auto Online, Rockstar Games is looking to bring the heart of the Grand Theft Auto experience to a living online world with multiple players. You can run around on your own, making friends and enemies. Or band together and form a crew. Rob a liquor store. Complete any job, and you'll make money and earn reputation. As you make some real money, maybe you can buy an apartment, so friends can stop by and hang out. Or buy a garage, fill it with custom vehicles, and then take them racing by land, air, and sea. Or simply cruise around showing off. Everything you do helps you progress through the world, introducing you to new characters.
Now keep your mouth shut about me, you hear?
New missions, rewards, and almost limitless opportunities. Grand Theft Auto Online brings the freedom of the Grand Theft Auto experience to multiple players in a dynamic, shared world.
And now, let us take a look at a more modern update trailer for the game.
It has to be the Russians, or the North Koreans, or the Chinese, or the Iranians.
We would need a ballistic missile launcher to have half a chance.
This cannot be traced back to me.
This is the apocalypse. The doomsday scenario. Mushroom clouds, fallout.
Oh, it's supposed to be at a potluck.
Say hello, Clifford.
You're embarrassing me, Avon.
There's a stark difference between these two eras, right? Specifically, the older GTA Online trailers and marketing put a big focus on player-driven asymmetry. Asymmetry means that players generally have different power levels in the game, but not as a product of unbalanced game, but of deliberate design choice. Players would interact with each other and have to cooperate or coordinate in order to fulfill their own goals. While some would go around showing off their new cars that they worked hard for, and participate in races with their riced-out sports cars, others would team up in tightly knit crews in suits to hunt down their enemies in helicopters and fast cars. Some might want to be a small-time carjacker, others might want to be those making money off of employing these carjackers to work for them. Some might want to be heavily armed and defended with a bunch of really good friends, while others might try and get in a few cheap kills with a pistol. Some might want to focus on legal side activities like parachuting or bike races, while others lurk in their offices moving product from A to B like a mafia boss. In short, some players are rich and powerful, while others work for them, leech off of them, or try doing their own thing in their own niche. They have very different gameplay loops, and many different builds would be possible. A racing character who spends their money on nice, fast cars to get the edge in races, a crew leader who is so valuable they need actual players as bodyguards, or a thug doing other players' dirty work. This structure closely mirrors the structure of a single-player GTA game. The protagonist starts off as a nobody, engaging in small-time crime, carjackings, being somebody else's right hand, and eventually overtaking all others and becoming kingpin of the city. Only that in Grand Theft Auto Online, all of these roles would be fulfilled by players. It would come with a very different experience. Someone could be at the top of a crew and get assassinated by a rival gang who wants a stake in the drug exporting minigame and subsequently loses it all. Because you could lose it all, which is clearly implied, a public lobby would actually not be a war zone since you risk something substantial by attacking somebody else. You would have to have a crew and a decent armament in order to lead a hit on somebody else, like implied in some trailers. Business would be concluded in these free roam lobbies and not in separate mission lobbies. It would actually be possible to cruise around showing off, or to have a calm meet in the game without passive mode and griefers and all that jazz. But it's not all speculation based on trailers. A lot of it made it into the final game, which supports my hypothesis. I will list off a bunch of mostly forgotten and old features that make it very clear what I mean. Number 1. Intro and contact missions. In the original introduction to GTA Online, we used to be greeted by Lamar Davis, a character from the single-player story mode, and work for him and his associates for a while. You would get actual cutscenes and a little story around it, strongly implying we would be rising up the ranks in Los Santos until it just cut off all of a sudden, and all other contact missions are accessed via menus, with the only context you are given being a 1 or 2 sentence blurb in the job description. There are 1 or 2 additional cutscenes, and recent updates have introduced a lot more actual story and cutscenes to the game, but it's clear that they originally intended you to play an entire storyline working for these characters, but you never did. The original introduction gave you a car to start off and drive to a race with, but it never came up again after that intro race. Now, to be fair, all more recent expansions are heavily focusing on NPC story content, but the cutoff after the original release's short storyline is jarring. Number 2. Physically starting missions. Originally, I believe the game had no job lobbies or ways to start a job from the menu. You would go up to where a mission is and either watch a cutscene or follow its story, or just start it then and there. It would encourage people to drive from A to B or pay attention to their phones for when an invite came in from a random player to join their match. In general, a lot more was supposed to happen in free roam lobbies and not secluded instances, allowing rivals to intervene and random people to get a taste of the action. Number 3. Leveling, reputation and job points. We have many different currencies and leveling systems in the game, and some of them originally restricted you heavily in the kinds of things you could buy. Almost all guns were locked behind a level gate, and the only ones you would have access to as a low-level player would be normal pistols. It was absolutely designed to facilitate player-driven asymmetry between high and low-level players, but was made completely obsolete by making DLC weapons free for everyone, undermining all kinds of progression. There are also job points in the game that have no purpose whatsoever except for voting power and ties. Number 4. Crews. Did you know that crews actually are way more fleshed out than you thought? It was not just a bog-standard glorified friend list like a guild in an MMO, it was actually a pretty involved and immersive system with not only your own crew logo to be designed that you could put on accessories and cars in-game, but also rank names like Lieutenant or Captain, a forum, promoting and depromoting crew members, and so on. It was clearly meant to be a very important system for the game and the prime way of people to play together cooperatively and competitively, to make low-level play viable and build communities, but it was completely abandoned because they focused on making soloing as viable as everything else. Number 5. Personal cars, races and betting. Why go all the length to customize and tune your car to get the competitive edge when you can just choose any car you want preparing for a race? Originally, I believe, you were intended to race your own cars only, to make being a racer actually an involved gameplay choice, with tuning high-end cars being a massive money sink to show off in races and be slightly better than other people, saving up for new cars, showing off and so on. And if they were destroyed by another player, that would set you back, requiring you to maybe team up with a bunch of people who could protect you if you were a high-profile racer. But alas, none of that mattered since there's a menu choice allowing you to choose any car you want. You could bet on other players, but the maximum betting amounts basically amounts to nothing, because money is worth nothing in game anymore anyway. No fixing races, no risk of losing significant amounts of cash, it is all obsolete. Number 6. Money. You have both a bank account and cash, and you are told in no unclear terms that carrying around cash is dangerous, because people might take it away from you. You could even hire a mugger to hit other players and rob them. Well, tough luck, because only a minuscule amount can actually be stolen, and you drop only chump change on death. It was clearly intended to drop all cash for your killer to loot, but we can't have people be frustrated by losing their money if we are also trying to sell them money. Number 7. Multiple characters and RPG mechanics. What is the point in having multiple characters if every character plays the same anyway? You were meant to have various different characters originally with their own progression, but that is completely useless nowadays since you have no choice in build or niche at all. You also might level up your stats to get the most out of your particular niche, but since everyone can be anything, none of these matter. In short, GTA Online originally was intended to be a heavily asymmetric multiplayer game with a high-risk, high-reward scheme that allowed both poor and rich characters to have fun in a world that simulated a single-player GTA game, only with real people filling in the cast. It was meant to be crew-centric, with plenty of role-playing and community-building opportunities. You could play many different character archetypes and still have a fun and fulfilling experience, and interact with people in different niches who inhabit the same world. But many of these systems ended up obsolete or unfinished, which begs the question, why did this happen? Clearly, there were reasons for the developers that they choose to do a 180, and it's not because this kind of asymmetric game that I'm describing cannot work. Another multiplayer game, EVE Online, is famous for having an extremely asymmetric player power distribution by relying on player-led organizations, corporations, to provide a self-balancing system. You might be a small-time freighter captain or a space pirate being a cogwheel in another player's grand scheme, or you might lead an assault on a star system in a gigantic starship fortress. So what led the GTA Online developers to go down this path? Well, first and most importantly of all, money. By selling shark cards, that is, buying in-game money as a microtransaction, they have essentially taken away the option to make asymmetry supported by game mechanics. They want people to buy cash, so they can't make being poor in the game a compelling gameplay mechanic. If people can just have fun without being rich, what incentive would they have to buy shark cards in the first place? That design decision destabilized the economy away from providing entertainment to people who would staff lower ranks and crews and try to get by as racers and small-time thugs, toward people who live an extremely wealthy lifestyle with flashy cars and guns. But I know it's not like it is a high-risk, high-reward type deal. There cannot be any overt risk, because otherwise people will be really disappointed and frustrated when they lose items that they bought with real currency. So you don't actually lose everything you have on yourself when you get killed. You cannot be backstabbed by a crew member. You cannot lose your car permanently when it is destroyed, or pay a hefty insurance fine. Au contraire, you actually punish the person blowing up your car by making them pay a fine. I cannot stress enough how much this little detail impacts the game. You don't need any players guarding you when you're a big crime boss, because you cannot lose anything. You do not need to drive the big armored SUV when you can simply drive a fast super sports car. You do not actually have to fear anything from a lower ranked player. Being rich is just linearly better than being poor, with no nuance or ifs and buts. Money directly converts into fun, without any risks involved. There's no high risk involved with trying to become rich. There's no way to lose it all, so everyone becomes richer the longer they play, making Rockstar lag behind in providing even more high-level content, resulting in a massive power creep. That led to things like the rocket-propelled motorcycle with rocket launchers on it. It led to them having to shower newcomers in free guns and free cars to make them be able to catch up, rendering the entire early game economy completely moot. That way, all that we have talked about in the first section, like different gameplay styles like being a racer or a thug or a biker or whatever, are completely obsolete. Secondly, the engagement metrics. Every time a new update comes out, you need to please all players, or those who feel not catered to will get frustrated and might leave the game. If you do a high life update with offices and luxury cars, you piss off people who use lowriders and beaters. Every piece of content needs to appeal to every player, so they made most DLC content free for everyone, threw massive amounts of free money at everyone whenever a server outage or new console generation happened, and made so many quality of life changes that they undermined their own game. Sure, you shouldn't need to have a great car to be able to get first in a race, so let us give everyone blanket access to all cars, completely undermining the ability to have a racing character. Same with shooting, so let us give everyone a free competitive rifle and make armored chump change. The only thing that actually locks away content is barred away behind money, because again, they want to sell shark cards. You can't have players frustrated because they lost, so let us take away any mechanic that would cause people to lose something permanently, like a car or good amounts of money. Every player needs to be able to participate in every single piece of content, so things stopped having requirements other than money. Of course, since they still sell it, money is still the requirement. So no player can have their own niche, since everything needs to be accessible by everyone. This shoehorns every single player into one playstyle. Do all the things, all the time, be massively rich. That takes away all the depth that the game might ever have had, and makes the content that pays the most the objectively best content to play through, reinforcing the idea that people just don't want to play anything else. What we are left with is a game that lacks all kinds of depth, variety and personal engagement with character or trope, despite sporting an actually really big catalogue of things to do. If the game restricted its content a little bit more, it might go counter to their monetization strategy, but it would make for a massively more entertaining game and an MMO unlike any the world has ever seen, with incredibly breathtaking gameplay, interaction between people in completely different niches, and customization that would be heaven for any role player. If there was just a little bit of additional risk involved, a little taste of actually needing any of these great gameplay mechanics you already have in the game would be much more interesting and allow for a wide variety of playstyles without the need to implement any new features. Now, in recent times, the updates to the GTA Online game were clearly somehow meant to reconcile both visions of the game with each other. We got way more story missions, the ability to build up a crime empire by becoming a motorcycle club owner, a CEO of a criminal business, a nightclub, a bunker and much more, and in a limited fashion you can also have players work for you. There are also some stakes involved in doing the open world tasks like shipments and motorcycle club missions, which can be sabotaged by other people in the open world. But at this point the game is far too set in its tracks, and power creep has already set in and done irreversible damage. Players are already conditioned to play this game in this way and one way only, and the game mechanics are built to support that. And why would Rockstar change their core ways if GTA Online in its current state and model makes them obscene amounts of money? I believe that GTA Online cannot be turned around. And maybe it shouldn't, since clearly many people are enjoying the game as it is. But there's one part of me that mourns what we could have gotten, that hopes for a game set in the real world that is actually an immersive multiplayer game with asymmetry, that encourages roleplaying to an extent, and that misses what GTA Online meant for me when I first set eyes on it, what it announced itself to be. Since then, I've gotten my fix with GTA roleplaying. Not the chaotic voice chat and mini games you see on Twitch, but the original text-based heavy role-playing, mostly on GTA San Andreas, aimed at creating plausible stories and keeping in character. It is unfortunate that the player base for GTA role-playing is so deeply infested by toxic players, but it is the closest thing to the original vision of GTA Online as you can get. Perhaps one day another company, or even a group of open source or free software developers might try and capitalize on the niche that we lost, because one thing is for sure, Rockstar Games sure won't leave the cash cow that is GTA Online alone. Thank you for watching my take on GTA Online and keeping with me until the end. This video was produced entirely for PeerTube, specifically the Spectra.video instance, in order to combat the ongoing content drought on this platform. If you enjoy my content, take any ActivityPub compatible account like Mastodon, PeerTube, Diaspora or anything else and leave a comment, like or subscribe for more content like this. Since Spectra Video is an invite-only instance, feel free to contact the maintainer of this instance if you want to produce your own content on here or participate in this growing community. If not, fret not, because you can still interact from any other federated instances and services like Mastodon without needing to sign up for Spectra. If you want, you can also reach out to me via Mastodon as dazego@social.technics.de. Until next time.